Hi guys, today we're going to be making apricot jam. I found some fantastic ripe and ready, supposedly, but I've actually tasted them and they're not bad at all. Ripe and ready apricots. Look at the size of these. Oh, fantastic, aren't they? I found these in Sainsbury's. I suppose it must be the season, height of summer. Not that you'd think it looking out the window here, but these were grown in Spain, as most apricots are, and they look very tempting. And I think they might make a nice drop of apricot jam. The only thing is I always seem to be a bit disappointed with apricot jam. I love the taste of apricots, but I tend to find that some of these apricots that you can buy, however tempting they look in the supermarket, they tend to be a bit disappointing once you've boiled them down. They're a bit tasteless, and you get very sweet jam that looks beautiful, lovely colour, and all full of lovely lumps of apricot and so on, but doesn't really come up to the mark, I don't think, with flavour. So I've tried a little tweak and it's worked very well, and I'll show you what that is. But first of all, we need to just finish stoning these. They're beautiful. There is juice actually running out of these, which is quite rare really for apricots. But what I tried before, and I'm going to do it again now because it was quite successful, was I added to the apricots some dried apricot, because they always seem to have a lot more flavour. Now I'm not talking about the dried apricots that you buy and the cake making department of the supermarket that are like bullets, and you put into cakes and things. Oh, I don't know what you do with them actually, to be honest with you, but I suppose you do something with them. I'm talking about the dried apricots that they sell for you to eat, sort of in place of a sweet treat, in place of your chocolate fix or whatever. And there's some good ones here. Marks and Spencer's do some excellent ones, but they're the squishy, those squishy, supposed to be eaten rather than put into things, dried apricots that have a lot of flavour, really, really lovely. So I'm going to put a few of those in now, but at the moment I've just finished slicing those apricots, and what we're going to do now is we're going to weigh, see how many we've got. So let's clear the decks a bit for the scales. There we go, the scales and a saucepan. I'll stick the saucepan on the scales. I'm going to try and use, as usual, the smallest saucepan as possible for the amount of fruit I've got for when we're boiling the fruit. I can't emphasise that enough. When you're boiling the fruit, first of all, keep the saucepan small as you can, watch it that it doesn't boil over. Then we obviously need a larger saucepan when we come to making the jam itself, putting the sugar in and boiling it up ready for the set, because it all froths up and it will all go everywhere. We want it small for the fruit to contain all the flavours. Boil it as little as possible, just make the fruit all soft and release all its pectin and so on in a small tight environment to keep all the flavour together. So as small a saucepan as possible. I think I'm going to get away with this. It might be a bit ambitious, be a bit too small. So let's zero the scales here with the old saucepan on top. Chuck our apricots in. I don't know whether we will get away with that, to be honest, but we'll give it a whirl. And there we are. We've got the best part of a kilo. We've got 911 grams exactly there. So I'm going to call that a kilo. And on top of that, my little secret, on top of that I'm going to put some finely chopped, I've done it before we started the video because you don't want to sit and watch me do that, but I've got these apricots, I've got 200 grams of them. I think about 200 grams per kilo is about right, and I've chopped them into little cubes, and I'm going to stick them in there as well. Okay, so all we want to do is, I'll just put these back in here for the process. What we want to do is just wet the bottom of the saucepan. So we put some water in it, swish it round, pour it out, but don't, just tip it out. So there's a little bit still just running around in the bottom. So put our apricots in. Okay, we'll stick our 200 grams of chopped apricots, of the chopped dried apricots on top. I think I'm being very ambitious here with the size of my saucepan. In fact, here you are. This is work on the hoof, changing changing things on the hoop to show that this is real and not all rehearsed. I'm going to be a coward and I'm going to up the size of that saucepan. I'll be with you in a sec. There we go, we'll have a bigger one. I can see that's going to end in absolute disaster. That is too small. So, re-wet the bottom of this saucepan. Oh, that adds to the washing up, but never mind. That's a bit more realistic. That's a lot more realistic. Okay, so we've got our apricots, and we've got our chopped apricots in there. We're just going to spoon and give them a bit of a stir around to mix them all in together. So as all those apricot, the dried fruit is mixed in with the fresh. Okay, and then what I'm going to do then, to get all the pectin and all the flavour out, as usual, the magic citric acid. Now there's a whole kilo of fruit there, so I think I'm going to use 2 teaspoons of citric acid, 2 level teaspoons, shake it over, one and another one, not too generous, just 2 level teaspoons I think would be more than enough. In fact, perhaps 1.5. There we are. Okay, so there we go, 1.5 teaspoons of citric acid. Just mix that in, give them a final mix there. Now that's going to go on the heat, as low heat as possible. When I put it on, bring them up to the simmer. Just let all the apricots, they should just boil down and become lovely and soft. Once they become soft, leave them to simmer away for about 5 minutes, just to try and pull all that lovely flavour out. Make sure you keep the lid tight on. Do watch them, they will go all over the stove if you don't keep an eye on them. Guaranteed they'll boil over. So keep your eye on them, bring them up to the simmer. When the fruit is all lovely and soft and it's all just a lovely mush, then give them another further 5 minutes, just gently simmering away. And when that's done, we'll come back and go on to the next phase, so see you then. Okay, so here we are then. You can see that a lovely gout of steam that just came off of there. You can see that that apricot has boiled down beautifully. Fabulous colour, isn't it? I always think apricots, absolutely beautiful. It's a lovely mush, and those bits of, hopefully those bits of the dried apricot that we put in there have softened considerably, and they do impart that bit of extra flavour. Now, what we need to hope is that the pectin has all been pulled out by the citric acid, and that we're going to get a set. Now, apricots aren't particularly pectin rich. You know, they're not famed for the amount of pectin they've got in them. So I would suggest when you're making apricot jam that you do have some bottled liquid pectin available to hand, because if you see that it isn't going to set from the first rolling boil, I'll show you what I mean in a bit, but if you see that it isn't going to set from the first rolling boil, then don't just keep boiling it, because all you will do is end up with a dark brown caramelised tasteless attempt at apricot jam. You are far better off bringing it to the rolling boil, seeing that it's not going to set of its own accord, and adding some liquid pectin, because the liquid pectin doesn't taste of anything particularly. It doesn't impart any bad flavours, and you will maintain all the lovely flavour then of your apricot jam. There's no pride issues involved in any of this. If you've done everything right, got enough citric acid in there, or enough acid, depending, you can use lemon juice, but you've got enough acid in there, you've got enough sugar in there. The only reason it won't be setting is because there's not enough pectin, and that's not your fault, that's in the fruit. And so all you have to do is kind of swallow your pride and add a bit of liquid pectin, and you'll have lovely tasty jam. Keep boiling it away, and you've wasted your money, your time, and it's a disappointment. So what we need to do now is we need to transfer this to a larger saucepan. I can't put the sugar that's required in there. There was a 1.2 kilos of fruit in total in there. So I want at least 1.5 kilos of sugar. I always put that bit more. Most jam recipes suggest a 1-to-1 ratio of fruit to sugar. I like to put at least 1.25 to 1 or 1.25 to 1. So, you know, we had 1,200 and an extra quarter on top of that is another 300. So we're looking at 1,500 grams or 1.5 kilos of sugar to go in here. Now that on top of the fruit that's in that saucepan wouldn't fit, quite clearly. So we're going to get the big guns out and we're going to get the big jam saucepan that I have. And the first thing we'll do then is we'll pour the apricot mixture, the boiled down apricots, making sure we get all of them out. Don't want to waste any of it, do we? Get all of it out from down the sides of the saucepan. There we go. In there. And then we'll put that inside. We then add the sugar, which I've pre-measured. So that's 1,500 grams of sugar in there, and we put the heat on, fire it up. We want full heat, and we want to nearly blew the kitchen up then by the sound of that. And we want to make sure that that doesn't stick. We need to keep stirring that away, dissolve all the sugar in, try and get it down, try not to make such a mess of it as I appear to have done. Try and keep it in the saucepan rather than up around the sides. Sugar, there we go, that's dissolving nice and easily. There we go, that's dissolving in there. Now that needs to be brought to a rolling boil as fast as possible without burning it to the bottom of the saucepan. So put it on a nice high heat, keep your eye on it, keep stirring it every now and then to make sure it doesn't burn to the bottom of the saucepan. And that wants to come up to the rolling boil as quickly as we can do. But it's going to be a moment or two because I have transferred it to a cold saucepan and I have just put a load of cold sugar on top of it. So rather than us all stand here and watch it come up to the boil, I'll come back when it's getting close to the boil and we'll take it from there. Okay? Okay, as I hope you can see, we're starting to come close to the rolling boil now. And it's just starting to produce some scum on the top, and if I move that scum around, it is quite sticky, you know, it is, there's a chance that this is going to set on its own. There is a chance that it will set on its own. There's a good scum forming, which has got quite a lot of, yeah, I think it will. That scum is crinkling very well. If you can see, I don't know whether you can on the video, but as this is coming to the rolling boil and pushing this scum into the middle, if I push it with my wooden spoon, I can get it to crinkle. Now that suggests to me that it is indeed setting on the top in amongst this scum, and so it looks to me like this is going to set on its own. So all I need to do now is bring this up to the rolling boil, which it's coming to. You just very prone to sticking the apricot, so just run my spoon around there. So we'll bring that up to a rolling boil, and it looks to me very much like that scum is telling me that this is going to set. I don't need any any saucepans, any saucers with with drops of jam on. I think this is going to set fine. We've got the classic volcanic sort of bubbling, that lovely bubbling lava, and that looks to me like it's going to set. I will probably just put a drop on a saucer just in case and have a look at it, and I'll come back to you. I'll turn the heat off now and we'll just put a drop. I'll just get a saucer out of here and we'll just put a drop, because I've armed myself with a bit of Certo, and I'll just put a drop on the saucer and we'll leave that to cool for a moment, just out of camera, and we'll just see whether or not we're going to get a set. I'll just leave that for a few minutes. I'll leave you guys, turn the video off because it's going to take a moment or two for it to cool, and I'll come back to you with the result. Okay, so here we are back with the saucer, and if you can see this, I don't know whether you can, I shall try and get it in shot. If I push that with my finger, that drop of jam, this has been a couple of minutes now, I can see that it's crinkling on the surface. Now I'm getting wrinkles on the surface of that jam that's on the saucer, and what's more, actually I can pick it up and you can see that it's coming up as jam on my finger. Okay, and it's absolutely delicious. So that is going to set. You know, it's going to be a bit of a softish jam, but it is going to set. An apricot jam is a difficult one to get, but that's good enough, and I'd rather leave a natural set, you know. But if you find that that's not happening and you're not getting that, you know, that's jamming. You can see that that's oops, missing the camera. You can see that that's turning into jam. But if you're not getting that, then that is delicious. Then obviously make sure you put the liquid pectin in, and all will be fine. If you go from here with the liquid pectin, you decide it's not setting, all you need to do is add the amount of manufacturer's instructions on the bottle, bring that back to a rolling boil, hold for 30 seconds and let it cool down, and everything will be absolutely fine. But this is going to be okay, and we're going to we'll be jarring it up in some really pretty jars, descumming it first, and hey presto, we can have some really tasty apricot jam. So I'll see you for the jarring up in a moment. So here we are then, guys, ready for the bottling, or the jarring up should I say, of the jam. I'll just bring it over here, a fair old amount we've got, and just going to take the scum off. It's a nice healthy looking scum that's already setting up on the spoon, which is all good stuff, all good indication that we're going to get a nice set. There we are. Try and take as much of the scum off as you can without obviously losing all the all of the jam at the same time. We'll try and get as much off as we can. There we go. Okay, so we put that to one side. There we are, and then we'll just pour into our measuring jug, preferably without burning ourselves. This is still extremely hot and it splashes quite violently. There we are. Okay, pour that into our measuring jug. It's a nice gloriously messy business, this. And look at these gorgeous jars. Apricot jam is such a lovely colour and such a delicious jam that, you know, you want something nice to do it justice, and these Macedonia jars, absolutely beautiful they are. They're large jars, they hold quite a reasonable amount, but I've got a lot of this apricot jam. So now all we need to do is just carefully pour into the pre-sterilised jars, hold the lid that way up close to the jar, pouring in up nearly to the top, a millimetre or two from the top, on with the lid, screw down tight, lick of the finger, and there we have it. Absolutely beautiful. Look at that for a colour, and a gorgeous flavour. You know, those dried apricots have made all the difference. That's all the bonuses of being the jam maker. You get to lick your fingers and what have you. But those dried apricots have made all the difference to that. It's got a real rich apricot flavour, and so there we are. Apricot jam with a little bit of extra oomph from some dried apricots. A nice little secret. I hope you enjoy it. Until next time, goodbye.